My name's Amber. I'm doing my informative speech on the Titanic. I'm here talking to you today about the Titanic and how it remains one of the most famous tragedies in our history. Then, a number of years later, how it came to life on the big screen and became a worldwide box office hit. To inform you about the Titanic from the disaster to the movie. An American writer named Morgan Robertson once wrote a book called The Wreck of the Titan. This book was about an unsinkable ship called the Titan that set sail from England to New York with many rich and famous passengers on board. In its journey, the Titan hit an iceberg in the North Atlantic and sunk. Many lives were lost due to not enough lifeboats. So, what is so strange about this? Well, The Wreck of the Titan was written 14 years before the actual Titanic set sail and sank. From the disaster to the movie, the sinking of the Titanic remains one of the most famous tragedies in our history. Then, a number of years later, became a worldwide box office hit on the big screen. After watching the movie, I quickly became a fan, as did most. The Titanic piqued my interest in the events leading up to the event of the tragedy. During the time period, it was a magnificent beauty of a ship, and it was also an honor to be able to ride it. During the past week, I've been able to read many books and journal articles about the Titanic. It was a huge tragedy that could have easily been prevented. With all of the years that have passed since the sinking of this beautiful ship, we are still diving down to the depths of the ocean to try and find and preserve treasures from this wreckage. During this speech, I will be informing you about the Titanic, its size and weight, along with approximately how many passengers were on board. Also, what happened during the night that tragic event took place. Then, talking about how it all ties together in the well-known movie we know today as Titanic. The amount of hard work, dedication it took to produce this film, along with the extreme success that came following. So, the Titanic. At the time of its launch, it was the biggest existing ship and the largest movable object ever to go across the ocean. According to Jeff Tibbles in his 1997 book, The Titanic, The Extraordinary Story of the Unsinkable Ship, the Titanic was 882 feet long and weighed about 46,000 tons. This was 100 feet longer and 15,000 tons heavier than the world's largest ship of that time period. Some of the beautiful accommodations on the Titanic were decorated and furnished with only the finest items. It was an extravagant ship with many fine details. Fine parlor suites within the ship consisted of a sitting room, 2 bedrooms, 2 wardrobe rooms, a private bath, and a laboratory. The first-class dining room was the largest. It could serve 500 passengers in one sitting. According to the quotation from Shipbuilders magazine that is included in Peter Thrush's 1992 book Titanic, everything has been done in regard to the furniture and fittings to make the first-class accommodations more than equal to that provided in some of the finest hotels on shore. The Titanic was widely believed to be the safest ship ever built. Because of the safety features we are going to talk about, the Titanic was deemed unsinkable. The bottom of the ship was divided into 16 watertight compartments equipped with automatic watertight doors. The doors could be closed immediately if water were to enter into the compartments. Tibbles described the Titanic as having an outer layer that shielded an inner layer, a double bottom. This was created to keep water out of the ship if the outer layer was pierced. Now that we talked about the ship and understand the Titanic itself, we can discuss the tragedy that occurred on the Titanic during its maiden voyage heading towards New York. The Titanic hit disaster head on, and it ran into an iceberg 4 days after its departure. On April 10th, 1912, the ship departed from Queenstown, Ireland, destined for New York, with crew and passengers on board. According to Walter Lord in A Night to Remember from 1955, the Atlantic Ocean was a polished plate of glass. The weather was perfect for sailing. There were blue skies, light winds, and a calm ocean breeze. The remarkable journey quickly became tragic when the ship hit an iceberg and began to start sinking. According to Robert Ballard's 1988 book, Exploring the Titanic, the largest part of the iceberg was underwater. Some of the ship's watertight compartments had become punctured, and the first 5 compartments rapidly filled with water. Distress rockets and fire signals were sent out, but there were no boats or ships that were close enough to arrive in time. While the ship was going down, some people were rescued, but the majority of the passengers had no place to go, and there were not enough lifeboats for everybody. On the Titanic, there were only 20 lifeboats to try to accommodate everyone. The lifeboats quickly filled with women and children. There ended up only being enough lifeboats for about half of the people that were on board. The ship quickly sank and was unable to be seen above water ever again. The Titanic broke in half and so slowly sunk to the bottom of the ocean. At 4:10 a.m., the Carpathian answered the Titanic's distress call and arrived to rescue those floating in lifeboats. Informing you about the history on the Titanic and how it was perceived to be this magnificent, unsinkable ship of the sea will help you see how the movie was made into such a blockbuster hit. The movie depicted the Titanic along with its voyage and a group of fictional characters that were made to tell the story. The cover of the Titanic. James Cameron set out to write and direct a film that would depict the tragic events that happened on the Titanic in his 1997 movie. Cameron conducted many months of research in order to compile a highly detailed timeline so that the film would be realistic. He spent more time on the Titanic ship than the original passengers did. Him and a crew took 12 trips down to the wreckage that lasted anywhere between 10 and 12 hours each time they went down. The production of the movie was incredibly expensive and involved a lot of hard work, time, and dedication. A full-size ship of the replica was constructed. According to a 1998 article from a historical journal of film, radio, and television, Kramer stated that the movie had a budget of $250 million. Titanic quickly became a blockbuster hit. It made approximately $1.8 billion worldwide. It brought home $600 million in the United States alone, was nominated for 14 Academy Awards, and took home 11. It was also nominated for 8 Golden Globes and won 4. We learned a lot today regarding the history of the Titanic and what happened on this tragic day, how the ship was decorated from its upscale furnishings that were on the boat to the lavish parlor suites and extravagant dining room. Touching upon how it was supposed to be known as an unsinkable ship of the sea, it managed to hit an iceberg and sink to the depths of the ocean. From the disaster to the movie, the sinking of the Titanic remains one of our most famous tragedies. It was brought to life on the big screen a number of years later with great success. Whatever the case may be, the amount of lives lost on the Titanic was tremendous, and it is something that something that should be never forgotten.